Entrepreneurial is not the first word or one of the first 10 words that come to my mind when I think of the Arab world. But my next guest is here to tell me that I'm wrong and the media is missing a big story in that part of the world. Chris Schroeder is a Washington, D.C.-based entrepreneur and venture capitalist himself. He has a new book called Startup Rising, The Entrepreneurial Revolution Remaking the Middle East. So as I say, when you tell people this, their first reaction must be, you're talking about Asia, right?
Yeah, which is it's an unfortunate way, because as you know from your travel, there are multiple generations of entrepreneurship in the Middle East going back 1,000 years. But people don't think of it as particularly a technology hub, which I think is a mistake that I've even made overall, because the fact is software now is everywhere. And when a new generation gets a hold of software, it does some very, very interesting things.
But give me a sense of, you know, what is the basic evidence for this? Because I would agree with you, it's an old trading culture. Muhammad was a merchant. But the states of the Arab world are highly statist. The state tends to own large swaths of the economy. I don't think of them as places where you'd see the growth of entrepreneurship.
One of the great stories about entrepreneurship now is the fact that so much is happening bottom up, again, enabled by technology. And so, as you know better than anyone, all emerging markets have tremendous complexity and histories and legacies which are hard to work at. But all of a sudden, when young people have these devices in their hands and they have the access to technology, they can collaborate, share ideas, solve problems in very, very different ways.
So what have you found going around?
So what I found overall are sort of three buckets of entrepreneurs. And by the way, this is as true in North Africa as in Yemen, in the midst of all the things that are going on. As you see, often in emerging markets, you have entrepreneurs who are taking things that have been successful elsewhere, and they're taking it to the Middle East. So there's a wonderful company called Maktub, which was the Yahoo of the Middle East, which, by the way, Yahoo bought for almost $200 million. There's another great company called Souq.com, which is a multi-hundred-million-dollar company, which is very much like the Amazon.com of the Middle East. But one of the most exciting things that I see are these young people who look at the problems around them. They use technology to solve them. So traffic is terrible in Cairo, as you know, and so now there are several wonderful apps to crowd share how you can get through and navigate traffic. I would say as much as 15% of the startups I see are education. I mean, a lot of people don't realize in Egypt alone that tutoring, supplemental education, is already a $2 billion business. And now technology is coming in to not only bring courses and videos online in Arabic, like Khan Academy, now it can reach hundreds of thousands, if not millions of more people. And of course, everything's one click away, which means that some of these companies I'm seeing are right now reaching American audiences. I discovered a year ago that I'd been using for 6 months a weather app. I had no idea it was made by 30 young people in Alexandria, Egypt, but I had it because I can access it in ways you could never before.
And the youth is a large part of your story. We often hear about the youth bulge in the Middle East, you know, whatever it is, about 60% of the Middle East is under 35. But you see that as actually one of the advantages powering this entrepreneurial revolution.
So it's an advantage with a caution. So if you compare the youth bulge in the Middle East compared to the opposite in Japan, I'm very, very optimistic about the potential there. But as you know better than anyone, when you have a youth bulge that is unemployed or not working, this has other very interesting ramifications. What is important is, as more and more young people have access to technology, they have more and more opportunity to take initiative into their own hands and create things which I think are very, very powerful in the ways I do not believe government or traditional business will be able to absorb that bubble.
Another piece that you see as very important is women, that this entrepreneurship is empowering women in societies that have many structural barriers to women's empowerment.
Yes, it's absolutely true. So I've seen studies that have say, and certainly backs anecdotally from all the multi-thousand person startup competitions I've seen over there, as many as 35% of these entrepreneurs are women. MIT had a great startup competition that they have in the Arab world every year. Last year, over 40% were women, which I can't find an event anywhere in Silicon Valley that could boast that. And so it is a counter-surprising thing when you think about it. But again, when you have technology, whether you're at home or you're out in the workplace, you have abilities to make things happen that you couldn't even 5 years ago.
The other advantage the Arab world has is, you know, what you describe as a kind of network effect. And I think about one of the things people don't think about is, despite the fact these are many countries, 29 countries, it's one language.
Yes.
Which in the world of computers and apps, and it provides you with a much bigger market than you would normally be able to have if you were, say, Portugal.
350 million people in the Arab world alone, and that's only, you know, a part of, I think, the opportunity in this great geographic location of north, south, east, and west. But I know great entrepreneurial organizations that were building e-commerce companies in Istanbul, and Istanbul is a wonderful ecosystem. But in the end, it's Turkish only.
Right.
So I know one group that decided to take out their e-commerce efforts there, and they shifted them to Dubai. And all their emphasis is there, I think, in large part just because of what you just described.
So you say, in a sense, don't look at the headlines, don't look at the politics, look at the bottom-up entrepreneurship of young people plugged into the world, aspiring to have the same kind of success that their counterparts have had in so many parts of the world.
The nuance I would say to anyone who's not been there is you have to look at the headlines because those hard realities are realities as well. Though, of course, as we know, there are hard realities everywhere in the world. But no one is spending enough time looking at something that's happening in parallel, just as large, and again, where the future is going. Where do you want to spend your time supporting? Solving the 20th century challenges, or a lot of times solving what's happening where the things are going? And so it's as much as be cognizant of the things that we all know about, but realize, question yourself to know that which is happening everywhere else in the world is going to happen here because it's happening here, and it's happening in Africa. We already know it's happening in South America and Eastern Europe and elsewhere. This is the world that we're entering.
Chris, pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for thinking of me.